It's been my mission for the last 30 years to educate the community and the city at large about what we have in our backyards. I started out trying 30 years ago to protect the Cuthbert Homes Park and the Colquitz Estuary area, and I used the great blue heron rookery that we have there as my platform, and it didn't go very far. In 2006, I joined a couple of volunteers, Chris Boss and Barry Goodwin, and we started to count salmon with the Department of Fisheries. I'm going to show you a short video of a project that we've been doing. They've been doing it since 2000. I joined them in 2006, and it is counting the amazing wild coho that come up our very urban Colquitz Watershed. This fence is situated right behind Tillicum Mall. Montana's restaurant is where you can park in the parking lot. And since I started in 2006, we've seen the numbers of the coho increase. And in 2009, I started to bring the School District 61 kids down to watch us count the fish. In October, the first part of October of each year, the wild coho are returning to spawn in their natal stream, which is where they were born, further up in the Colquitz River. And we block their passage temporarily. They're led into a holding area, and for sometimes 6 and 8 hours a day, I pull fish. And when I lift the lid of the trap to have a look at these wild coho, and some of them are 18 pounds, I do a quick assessment. 10 seconds in the net, and I will let you know what the species is, what the gender is, the age of the fish, whether they have predator marks or not, and whether those predator marks are something recent or something that they've acquired on their way up to Alaska on their journey back around Vancouver Island, heading for downtown, so that they can lay their eggs in the Copley Park area of the main stem of the Colquitz River. This video is now about 6 years old. There are some things in it we don't do anymore. You'll see us measuring the fish in a trough. We don't do that anymore. We don't handle them. We've collected that data for a decade. In the early part of 2000, we used to actually take small scale samples, and DNA was done on those scales. There's a lot of information about these salmon. The salmon in the Colquitz River are a wild species. You can walk anywhere along the Colquitz River and see them spawning generally in about November. I'll just play this video. I hope. Press it again? Yeah. Okay. Can you hear that music? So remember, London Drugs is only a few hundred feet away from this.
This is the big girl salmon, and this is called a coho. She's from the Gold Stream River, and I got her from the hatchery so that we would have something to look at and explore. Her eggs were taken at the hatchery, and they're going to be looked after. It's like a nursery. All the babies are going to be raised in the hatchery, and then they're going to be released back into the Gold Stream River. The boy fish get really red when they're ready to have their family. They get this big hooked nose, and that's what the changes are, the boy fish, so that they can protect their family.
This is the Colquitz Creek and the watershed, which also includes Swan Creek. It starts and comes in from the ocean at Ogden Point. That's where people will see it actually comes to the ocean. Comes up through the gorge and then Portage Inlet. And there are two creeks that flow into Portage Inlet. Colquitz is one of them. The other one you will, I'm sure you know, is Great Cloud. Essentially, it's a project that's overseen by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and it's one of the only volunteer-operated coho counting fences on South Vancouver Island, where we are providing numbers that feed into their stock assessment system.
children grow up in a built environment and they're not connected to nature, and then they won't understand nature and be less likely in the future to help protect nature. And whether it's within their neighborhood or in the greater sphere of the world. So by enhancing, restoring urban streams and bringing wildlife back to these streams, fish and wildlife, is that it'll connect children with nature, despite the fact they're living in the city.
I learned that there are different animals besides salmon, like beavers and minks.
This is a stick that's been cut down by a beaver.
I learned if the little fin in the back of the fish is gone into hatchling fish, and if it's still there, it's a wild fish.
The coho salmon in Colquitz, and the ones that run up into Swan Creek and up the main stem of Colquitz, those fish are a wild strain of coho salmon. They have not been hatchery augmented.
Salmon was here first, and we don't really want to destroy their habitat or anything, so we have to protect it like this. So no construction can come in here. Oh, no fish are here or anything. I'm just going to take this down.
It's not so much the information for counting the fish, which is very important, because that gives us a handle on how healthy the watershed is. But we also feel there's a very important aspect of stewardship attached to this, which tells people that even though in the summer they may see a plastic bag hanging over them, or a shopping cart in the water, this is a productive urban stream that has a significant run of coho salmon. And it's something that we all need to do our best to protect.
We're doing habitats and communities in science right now, and I thought this would be a great free learning educational base for the students. It's good to see what's in their community and what's going on around their community, so they're able to help out in their community and give others knowledge that they may not have about aspects in their community.
Traditionally, our counts here, which started in 2001, they vary quite dramatically depending on the abundance expected to return. Our lowest number since 2001 is about 110 fish. Our highest number was 675 fish, which occurred in 2003. Our average number is around 300 fish. In 2011, just before the oil spill occurred on Swan Creek, we had actually counted around 325 fish.
Right, the oil spill of 2011. This journey that I've taken to protect this area has led me to become the poster child for oil spills in the watershed also. I've been working with environmental law about buried underground fuel oil tanks that have been dumping into the Colquitz River. I need you to remember that this is behind Tillicum Mall. And this year we pulled 1,120 wild coho salmon from the Colquitz River. We had one wandering chum, a dozen cutthroat trout. We even had a bullfrog. And every day, once the run starts, I'll back up. These fish were born in the Colquitz anywhere from 2.5 to 4 years ago. Excuse me. They're now returning. They've come back to Portage Inlet in September. They're not eating. They're changing into their mating clothes, and they're waiting for the two rivers, the Craigflower and the Colquitz, to have the right water conditions. And when they do, the run starts, and they usually come up in large groups. Some of them, if they've been in Portage Inlet for a while, are quite red like this. Others that have come fresh from the sea are called chromers, and they are very silver. And they will make the changes in the freshwater environment of the Colquitz River. After we meet and greet them, I give them all a name, I collect the data, and they're then released on the upstream side of that fence barricade, and they take off up the Colquitz. A lot of the best spawning gravel is in Copley Park, Mann Avenue area. If you walk along interurban near Colquitz School, you'll see them spawning there also. Off they go up they spawn. Each one of these females carries about 2,500 to 4,000 eggs. And there are different sizes of salmon. The young ones are called jacks. They're 2.5 years old, and they are known as a precocious juvenile. And instead of heading with their herd up into Alaska, up the Inside Passage, and coming back down the outside of Vancouver Island, these young adolescent boys hang around home. They know where there's good food, and at 2.5 years of age, their hormones turn on, and they return back to the Colquitz, and they spawn with the adults who have visited Alaska and come back again. So there's always a blending of different years of salmon and different gene pools from the same gene species. Scientists have wondered if that's a way, in case one of the years of salmon were completely wiped out, that these precocious juveniles are capable of spawning and they're coming back after 2.5 years. In the early 2000s, when this fence was put in, there has been a fence here since the 1970s, and there's been cutthroat and salmon counted here. This fence structure was put in the year 2000, and in the early years, there was 200 to 400 fish that have been counted. Since I started with them in 2006, we've seen the numbers go up. We've had as high as 1,500 fish in the last couple of years. Last year, we had a large warm blob. Most of you will remember that that was off the coast of Vancouver Island, and with that large warm blob came marine species that don't belong here, and they were a huge competition for our local salmon. Our salmon numbers were anticipated to be quite small, and their actual physical size was quite small. We only counted 265 fish last year, having come off of a year of 1,500. We've had this oil spill that happened in 2011 came right during a huge spawning season, large numbers, fully contaminated Swan Creek and the Colquitz. The salmon were dying before our eyes. We had to pull the panels out. The fish left and didn't spawn. And each and every one of those females that does not spawn is carrying close to 4,000 eggs that we've lost as potential returning salmon. So I just wanted you, the reason that I do this education with the community, with the school systems, is because I need stewards. We all need stewards of our watershed. I need people to understand that this is an amazing urban watershed. At this fish fence, we have harbor seals, otters, mink. We have a beaver dam, and that's where those sticks came from, is we had a beaver dam right at the fish fence also. So I hope you'll come and see us. We'll be there in the fall. Thank you. Is there any questions? Yes.
The juvenile jacks, do they return or do they die the same as the adult?
Good question. And yes, they die the same as the adults do. The cutthroat trout that we have that come up, it's not their spawning time. They are the smart cutthroat that are following the salmon in so that they can eat the salmon eggs. And if you get an opportunity to watch the spawn from the edge of the Colquitz pathway, you'll see the cutthroat hanging off in the side, and as soon as those eggs are laid, another interesting thing is that there's about 60 to 90 seconds that the milt, the white cloud of liquid from the male, has to penetrate into those eggs. There's this tiny pinhole. And when the female has dug the red or nest out with her tail, the males are waiting. They have to position themselves in the perfect area upstream, depending on what the flow of the water is, because there's about 60 seconds that white milt of sperm can come down and it has to flow through those eggs. And if it doesn't hit those eggs, that tiny pinhole is then closed and those eggs will never be fertilized. So there's always cutthroat that are waiting. They're waiting to eat the eggs. We have about a dozen that come up during the coho spawn, but there's actually and they don't die after they spawn. They come back and forth. They can live in a marine and a freshwater environment. But the sea-run cutthroat trout will enter the Colquitz system in about February or March to come up and lay their eggs, and then they will leave again. Thank you. Anything else?
I have another quick. So the oil spill in 2011, was there some successful spawning? So is there in
Yes.
that year, or was it?
There was successful spawning in that year, and our counts were good following that year also. But we had fish that were dying before our eyes from the contamination from the oil spill. And we had to quit counting. The panels came out, the whole project ended. We didn't want anything to impede those salmon from being able to leave and get back out. Hopefully some of them left and went up Craigflower.
What's the current status of the Colquitz? Are there any current threats that you're keeping your eye on? How well is that system being maintained and managing the development that's around?
Sadly, the estuary of the Colquitz and Cuthbert Homes Park is the site of the Mackenzie Interchange project right now. The area has been devastated by the Ministry of Transport Cloverleaf, and there's been an awful lot of sediment dumping and sewage overspills into this very important waterway. I think generally in the watershed itself, our infrastructure needs, we have so many impervious surfaces, and our runoff is what is a huge problem for these salmon also, and oil spills, any kind of contaminants. Oil and things end up down storm drains. Hydraulic fluid leaks from construction right into storm drains. And people need to understand that every storm drain that's on a road is a direct pipe to the salmon in the Colquitz. It doesn't go anywhere, it's not cleaned. It flows, storm drains flow directly to the river. And so everything that goes in there comes to the salmon. And the invertebrate that are damaged by spills are what help to feed these salmon and the birds in this wonderful migratory bird sanctuary. So this is an amazing place. Thanks.